Hello, how's it going, everybody? Let me make sure we're not lagging over here, and I'll get the text up on screen as well. Give me 1 second. Okay, we are lagging. All right, let me fix that. Let's see. Look at the text up. Are we lagging? I think we're good. Okay. So yesterday we were planning on doing Daniel 1 to 3, but 2 took a bit of time. So we're throwing 3 in today. So we're gonna do 3 to 5. So yesterday we finished up with the Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Daniel interpreting and retelling Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the statue, and we went through the symbolism with each segment of the statue, how it signified a certain nation, empire. Today we're gonna get the latter end of that statue, and continue on from there. So without further ado, let's jump into Daniel chapter 3. Make sure the volume is on. All right, let's get going.
Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and its
Oh, never mind. Different statue.
width 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. And King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to gather together the satraps, the administrators, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces, to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So the satraps, the administrators, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered together for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud,
To you it is commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery in symphony with all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace.
Uh-oh.
So, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the horn, flute, harp, and lyre in symphony with all kinds of music, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the gold image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up.
Think about the culture shock that Daniel and his friends and all of the Hebrews that came over here to Babylon are experiencing. I'm sure some of them did bow down. Some of the Jews did bow down to this golden statue, but I'm sure there were also. I don't know if Daniel and his friends were the only few that didn't bow down. I would assume that a few others didn't bow down as well. But think about the culture shock, because music and all that was synonymous with worship back in Jerusalem also. And to hear very similar instruments, horn, flute, harp, lyre, being played at a time for worship, and you're seeing this huge statue of a man, a golden statue of the king being set up, and people bowing down to it, you'll be like, what am I doing here? I want to go back home. These people are not my people. I don't believe the things they believe. What they're doing is sinful. How can I be here? It must have been a huge shock. At that moment, they're just like, come on, I can't be here. I got to go home. I don't know what I'm going to do. That must have been tough.
and worshipped the gold image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Therefore at that time certain Chaldeans came forward and accused the Jews. They spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar,
O king, live forever.
Accuse the Jews.
O king,
So multiple
have made a
Jews
decree that everyone who hears the sound of the
Not
horn,
bowing down.
flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, in symphony with all kinds of music, shall fall down and worship the gold image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the midst of a burning, fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not paid due regard to you.
So did we picked on these individuals because they were set above the others. But I'm curious about other Jews who weren't chosen for these positions, who were just there as captives, who didn't bow down. Were they killed? I'm sure they were killed. I'm sure.
They do not serve your gods or worship the gold image which you have set up.
Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they brought these men before the king.
And there was Daniel
Is it
at
true,
this time.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold image which I have set up? Now, if you are ready at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, in symphony with all kinds of music, and you fall down and worship the image which I have made, good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery
I'm
furnace.
gonna look that up. Where was
And
Daniel
who
during
is
this
the
time?
God who will deliver you from my hands?
O Nebuchadnezzar.
Let me pause right here. Just look it up. I mean, I mean, if it's not written here, I don't know. Maybe if it's written somewhere else in the book of Daniel, we might get some clues. Where was Daniel? Fiery furnace. Where was Daniel during the fiery furnace incident in Daniel chapter 3? Daniel relates the famous account of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or to use their Hebrew names, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. That's interesting how Daniel decided to use their Babylonian names here, because prior he was using their Hebrew names. And I commented saying that makes sense because these are pagan names. Why would we refer to ourselves as, with these pagan meanings? We would refer to ourselves with our original Hebrew names. So it's interesting that the pagan Babylonian names are being used by Daniel as he's writing. The three brave Hebrews take a stand against the king of Babylon. The three brave heroes take a stand against the king of Babylon, refuse to bow to an idol, and are thrown into a burning fiery furnace. Interestingly, Daniel is not mentioned in the story at all. Why did Daniel's three friends face the wrath of the king alone? Where was Daniel during their time of crisis? Scripture does not say where Daniel was when King Nebuchadnezzar tried to kill Daniel's friends. There are a few possibilities, all of them speculative. Well, let's just hear what they've got to say. Daniel was ruler over the entire province of Babylon and in charge of all its wise men, and had been sent away on an assignment by Nebuchadnezzar and was therefore not present at the event described in Daniel 3. Oh, so we're going all out speculative. Okay. I was thinking, okay, so that's, yeah, all out speculative on these. Because of Daniel's promotion and his place in the royal court, Nebuchadnezzar had exempted Daniel from the command to bow down to the golden statue. Okay. Yes, yeah, we're going all out speculative here. Daniel, in fear of being executed or to appease the king, bowed down to the golden statue. Okay. Yeah. So those are not substantiated by anything, really. They're true speculation.
Deliver you from my hands.
So we really don't have any
O
clue.
Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up.
Then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face changed toward Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. And he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach,
Imagine how
and
hot that
Abednego.
is.
And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound, into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar
down
was
into it.
astonished, and he rose in
Upside down.
haste and spoke, saying to his counselors,
Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?
True, O king.
Look, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire. And they are
So that's that. So they were like bound up, probably hands and feet thrown in there. So you're expecting them to just be laying on the ground being cooked. But they were walking around freely, and not just 3, but 4 men in there.
not hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God.
Then Nebuchadnezzar
Okay, see, that's very interesting right there. I want to know the translation of that. Why would they say the form of the 4th is like the Son of God? What does Son of God mean to them? Like, what do they call those in Greek mythology? Like those half god, half human people. Something like that. I forgot what those things are called. Those people are called. Let me see what my Bible's got to say about the Son of God thing. Daniel 3:25. I'm just curious, what did they think when they said Son of God? And my Bible says absolutely nothing. Let's look up a commentary. Nebuchadnezzar tells us who the 4th person was, the Son of God. Jesus was literally with them in the worst of their trial. But they don't know who Jesus is. They don't know what Jesus looks like. So I don't agree with this. I want to know, what did they think upon writing this? We don't know if Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego knew that the Son of God was with them in their fiery trial. Sometimes we are aware of Jesus' presence in our trials, and sometimes we are not. But he is there nonetheless. Spurgeon observed that God's people are often in the furnace, And though there are different kinds of furnaces, they serve similar purposes in our life. There is the furnace that prepares, the furnace that Satan prepares. There's a furnace that man prepares, that Satan prepares, and that God prepares. God can deliver us from a trial. He can miraculously sustain and strengthen us in a trial. Trapp quotes an English martyr who said this as he was burnt at the stake: "O ye papists, behold, ye look for miracles. Here now you may see a miracle. For in this fire I feel no more pain than as if I were in a bed of down." I think down is goose feathers, some type of feathers. But it is to me as a bed of roses. I gotta look up another commentary on this. Commentary. Oh, what commentary? Daniel 3 commentary. BibleHub.com. Perfect. We're already there. The Son of God. These words, let us remember, are written by a heathen king. Exactly. So they wouldn't think, hey, this is Jesus. They would think this is just some being. And if it's coming down in a human form, maybe it's not God himself, because he doesn't look anything like our gods. Therefore, it's a son of God or someone that is a spawn of God, something from God. What are those things? What are those people called? Something starts with a D, right? Half God, half man, Greek mythology. Not a faun, a demigod. A demigod. In Daniel 3:28, an angel of the God whom the three children worshipped. These words, let us remember, are uttered by a heathen king who calls this same person in Daniel 3:28 an angel. Okay. So I want to know who translated this and what was the original text, because how do you have son of God in one and an angel in another? So they're clearly thinking that this is some sort of godly being, but not God. And in 3:28, an angel of the God whom the three children worshipped. Probably Nebuchadnezzar thought that he stood to Jehovah in the same relation that he himself did to Merodach. And also, Nebuchadnezzar knows about the God of the Hebrews through Daniel. His conceptions of the power of Jehovah were evidently raised by what he had witnessed, though as yet he does not recognize him as being more than a chief among gods. So he's a chief among gods. So there are still other gods. The gods that the Babylonian gods are still real. It's just that the Hebrew God is the one among them, and he's probably the most powerful of the gods. And that's a viewpoint that the children of Israel had shared for a while as well. He has not risen to that conception of the unity of God, which is essential to his absolute supremacy. But still, the question has to be answered. What did the king see? The early patristic interpretation was that it was none other than Christ himself. And that's probably why we have the translation in this Bible as the Son of God. We have no means of ascertaining anything further and must be content with knowing that the same angel of God's presence, who was with both Israel and the wilderness, watched over the people in Babylon. See, Son of God is like a son of the gods, a heavenly being or angel, the son of gods. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to read this. My Bible has something here called theophanies. This could be interesting. Let me look up theophanies so you can look at what that is, because I don't know what that is. Theophanies. What is theophany? Theophany is a manifestation of God in the Bible that is tangible to the human senses. In its most restrictive sense, it is a visible appearance of God in the Old Testament period, often but not always in human form. Some of the theophanies are found in these passages, and here we're reading one of them. Let me put it on a picture so it's a little bit more interesting while I read this. Let's see if I can find the exact one. No, I can't. No. Whatever. You get that. You get the idea, right? So, the theophanies. When King Nebuchadnezzar exclaimed that the fourth man walked about in the fiery furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was like the Son of God, it may be an overstatement to say that he recognized Jesus. Yeah. Yet, even though he worshipped other gods, Nebuchadnezzar somehow knew that this fourth mysterious figure was divine. Although the doctrine of the triune God was not fully revealed until Jesus' time, we find clues that God was preparing humanity for this truth. In the Old Testament, such foreshadowings of God or the pre-incarnate Christ is visible in a visible form are called theophanies, meaning appearances of God. These theophanies include the angel who comforted Hagar, the visitor who revealed to Abraham and Sarah that they would have a son, the Lord's appearance to Moses in the burning bush, the pillars of cloud and fire that led the Israelites from Egypt, and Moses' glimpse of God on Sinai. Some people would also include as a theophany the appearance of Melchizedek, the priest king of Salem, who gave wine and bread to Abram. The Old Testament contains nearly 80 references to the Spirit of God and anticipates the arrival of God's Son, the Messiah, who would deliver his people. Daniel also calls Christ the Son of Man. See Daniel 7:13. We'll get into that tomorrow, or on Monday. These theophanies were temporary, however. They were hints of the incarnation of Christ, fully human and fully divine, who would live among and redeem his people.
Walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the fourth is like the Son of God.
Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke,
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here.
Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came from the midst of the fire. And the satraps, administrators, governors, and the king's counselors
Their mind must have been
gathered
blown.
together,
Like, holy.
and they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of their head was not singed, nor were their garments affected, and the smell of fire was
Just
not
the
on them.
bindings that they put on them.
Nebuchadnezzar spoke.
Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
See?
who
Blessed be the
sent
God
his angel and
of
delivered
Shadrach,
his
Meshach, and
servant.
Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants. See? They thought he was just a god. The God of Shadrach, Meshach. No, he's not just the God of Shadrach. He's the God of everybody. But they just viewed God as one among many.
Who trusted in him. And they have frustrated the king's word and yielded their bodies that they should not serve nor worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made an ash heap, because there is no other God who can deliver like this.
Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.
And here's the other thing. Even though Nebuchadnezzar saw the power of God, he didn't convert to worshiping God, right? Because he believed that God was just one among the many other gods of Babylon and all the other gods. So Nebuchadnezzar can't turn against his gods. Then he has no integrity. You know what I mean? Because he truly believes in his gods, and now he truly believes in the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But if he completely goes and he disowns his God and worships the real God, then he probably thinks that the gods of Babylon are going to come after him. So he stays loyal to his God, but still pays his respect to the gods of God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So growing up, I was like, hey, why didn't he, completely give himself to God? Well, it's because he just viewed God as one among many.
Nebuchadnezzar the king,
Oh,
all
another
peoples,
dream.
nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I thought it good to declare the signs and wonders that the Most High God has worked for me. How great are his signs and how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation.
I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house, and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts on my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore I issued a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. Then the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers came in, and I told them the dream, but they did not make known to me its interpretation. But at last Daniel came before me. His name is Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God. In him is the spirit of the holy God. And I told the dream before him, saying, Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy God is in you, and no secret troubles you. Explain to me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and its interpretation. These were the visions of my head while on my bed. I was looking, and behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height was great. The tree grew and became strong. Its height reached to the heavens, and it could be seen to the ends of all the earth. Its leaves were lovely, its fruit abundant, and in it was food for all. The beasts of the field found shade under it. The birds of the heavens dwelt in its branches, and all flesh was fed from it. I saw in the visions of my head while on my bed, and there was a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven. He cried aloud and said thus,
Chop down the tree and cut off its branches. Strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts get out from under it and the birds from its branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump and roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze in the tender grass of the field. Let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let him graze with the beasts on the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from that of a man. Let him be given the heart of a beast. And let 7 times pass over him. This decision is by the decree of the Watchers, and the sentence by the word of the Holy Ones.
Decree of the Watchers. I remember I read a little bit of the Book of Enoch, and angels were identified by that name, the Watchers.
In order that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, gives it to whomever he will, and sets over it the lowest of men.
This dream, I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now you, Belteshazzar, declare its interpretation, since all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known to me the interpretation. But you are able, for the Spirit of the Holy God is in you.
Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonished for a time, and his thoughts troubled him. So the king spoke.
Belteshazzar, do not let the dream or its interpretation trouble you.
My lord, may the dream concern those who hate you, and its interpretation concern your enemies. The tree that you saw, which grew and became strong, whose height reached to the heavens and which could be seen by all the earth, whose leaves were lovely and its fruit abundant, and which was food for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and in whose branches the birds of the heaven had their home. It is you, O king, who have grown and become strong. For your greatness has grown and reaches to the heavens, and your dominion to the end of the earth. And, inasmuch as the king saw a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, "Chop down the tree and destroy it, but leave its stump and roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze in the tender grass of the field. Let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let him graze with the beasts of the field, till 7 times pass over him." This is the interpretation, O king, and this...
That Watcher, the angel coming down from heaven, chopping trees, that's also reminds me of the Book of Enoch.
...is the decree of the Most High, which has come upon my lord the king. They shall drive you from men. Your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make you eat grass like oxen. They shall wet you with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass over you, till you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he chooses. And inasmuch as they gave the command to leave the stump and roots of the tree, your kingdom shall be assured to you, after you come to know that heaven rules. Therefore, O king, let my advice be acceptable to you. Break off your sins by being righteous, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor. Perhaps there may be a lengthening of your prosperity.
All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of the 12 months, he was walking about the royal palace of Babylon. The king spoke.
Is not this great Babylon, that I have built for a royal dwelling by my mighty power, and for the honor of my majesty?
While the word was still in the king's mouth, a voice fell from heaven.
King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken. The kingdom has departed from you, and they shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field.
They shall make you eat grass like oxen, and 7 times shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he chooses.
So I feel like God is upset that Nebuchadnezzar is full of himself. He thinks he's like a god. And he's also probably upset that he's probably insulted that Nebuchadnezzar only views him as a god among many. After all that Nebuchadnezzar has seen, he hasn't 100% fully acknowledged God as God. He's acknowledging God as a god, not the god. And so that's why Nebuchadnezzar is probably staying loyal to his Babylonian gods while showing some respect on the side to the God of Daniel. And God and God's not taking that disrespect. He's like, you can't treat me like some side piece. And he's making sure Nebuchadnezzar understands that there's only one God, and he is that God. Let's see if Nebuchadnezzar learns his lesson.
That very hour, the word was fulfilled concerning Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven
Wow,
from
that
men
very hour.
and ate grass like oxen.
So if you think like, okay, whoa, this is just a mental illness. No, it literally the very hour. Like very soon after this, his vision, his dream, it came true. It didn't take years of degradation and mental illness. Like he had schizophrenia or something. Just happened like that.
Body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hair had grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws.
And at the end of the time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me, and I blessed the Most High, and praised and honored him.
Yeah, and it stopped at the time that God said it would
forever.
stop. 7 years.
For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing.
I wonder what was going on in his head during that
according
time.
to his will,
If he even had like
in the army of heaven
thoughts
and among the inhabitants of the earth.
I mean, I'm sure because he was given time to think about
No
all this.
one can restrain his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" At the same time, my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and splendor returned to me. My counselors and my nobles resorted to me. I was restored to my kingdom, and excellent majesty was
So who
added
was
to
king
me.
during those 7 years?
Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all of whose works are truth, and his ways justice. And those who walk in pride, he is able to put down.
Let me look that up. Who ruled Babylon? Maybe it was Daniel. And let me see, who ruled Babylon? Let me see if that's enough too. According to Conservapedia, a Christian fundamentalist encyclopedia, in 570 BC, Nebuchadnezzar, having completed his wars of conquest, returned to Babylon to concentrate on making it his showcase. At this time, he dreamed of a tree destined to be cut down. Daniel trying to tell him that Nebuchadnezzar himself was that tree, but the king did not listen. Very soon thereafter, Nebuchadnezzar came to suffer the delusion that he was an animal and to eat grass. This disease, known as lycanthropy, involves the delusion that the affected person can or has transformed into an animal, or that he or she is an animal. Michael Nisbet says a fragmentary cuneiform inscription in which an anonymous court official, possibly the king's own physician, could possibly testify to symptoms of depression in Nebuchadnezzar, and therefore perhaps his depressive disorder. All right, that's not answering my question. Okay, so we're just talking about the validity of that statement. Looks like another king followed Nebuchadnezzar, but there was no other king during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. So I'm really thinking those 7 years, 7 years probably David ruled. I mean, not David. Daniel ruled. And Nebuchadnezzar went mad. Yeah, this is the exact question I had, but there's no answer to it. Oh, there's more answers down below. Yeah, nothing is addressing that. I think this is saying that it's Jewish propaganda. I don't know. I'm really thinking it was Daniel. Who else? Because you're not going to put another Babylonian on the throne, because they're going to want to keep it. You're not going to want to put somebody on the throne. You're going to put a steward there to rule and take care of the kingdom while the king is in this state, because he knew that he was going to come back after 7 years. He's not installing a new king. It's not like Nebuchadnezzar's gone. So he had a steward in place. I wonder if that steward was Daniel.
Belshazzar, the king, made a great feast for 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine in the presence of the 1,000. While he tasted the wine, Belshazzar gave the command to bring the gold and silver vessels, which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple which had been in Jerusalem, that the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. And they brought the gold vessels.
Belshazzar. If we're saying Nebuchadnezzar, then evil Merodach, and Belshazzar's down here. But now we're talking about Belshazzar being the king right after. I mean, we could have skipped all these and just gone to this. So, yeah, because we're having 3 months here.
that had been taken from the temple of the house of God, which had been in Jerusalem. And the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines drank from them.
Oh, this is interesting. Let me read this. What the Bible's got to say. Belshazzar is the king and the son of Nebuchadnezzar. Other ancient records, however, seem to dispute both facts. These records indicate that Belshazzar was the son of Nabonidus, the last king of Babylon. Two possible explanations can reconcile these differing accounts. Let me pull that chart up. And it seems like this picture is agreeing with that latter idea, that Nabonidus was the father of Belshazzar. Two possible explanations can reconcile these differing accounts. Belshazzar served as vice regent during his father's frequent absences from the capital. Okay, so that would explain, hey, who ruled while Nebuchadnezzar was in his mad state for 7 years? Thus, he would have been in charge when Nebuchadnezzar's insanity began. Yep. Note that Darius and Mede was also called king, even though he served Cyrus. 2. Belshazzar was the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar. Hence, the term father in verse 2 indicates that Nebuchadnezzar was an ancestor of Belshazzar. That's right, because you can refer to father as any ancestor.
Drank wine and praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze and iron, wood and stone. In the same hour, the fingers of a man's hand appeared and wrote opposite the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace.
Imagine seeing floating
and the king
fingers.
saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's countenance changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his hips were loosened and his knees knocked against each other. The king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. The king spoke, saying to the wise men of Babylon,
"Whoever reads this writing and tells me its interpretation shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around his neck.
Yeah, was that any earthly
And he shall be the third
script?
ruler in the kingdom."
Now all the king's wise men came, but they could not
Was
read
that a
the
heavenly
writing or make
text?
known to the king its interpretation. Then King Belshazzar was greatly troubled, his countenance was changed, and his lords were astonished. The queen, because of the words of the king and his lords, came to the banquet hall. The queen spoke.
O king, live forever. Do not let your thoughts trouble you, nor let your countenance change. There is a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy God. And in the days of your father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father the king, made him chief of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. Inasmuch as an excellent spirit...
It would make sense that this Belshazzar was Nebuchadnezzar's grandson or some other descendant, because if he was Nebuchadnezzar's direct son, I'm sure he would have known Daniel. If Daniel was serving as Nebuchadnezzar's magician, and Belshazzar was the one ruling over Babylon during his father's 7 years of madness, he would have known Daniel. He would have seen Daniel walking around and all that stuff. So the way it's being written here, he doesn't seem to know Daniel. So I'm assuming, based off of this, that father here is not a direct relationship.
Knowledge, understanding,
literal father,
interpreting dreams, solving riddles, and explaining enigmas were found in this Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will give the interpretation."
Then Daniel was brought in before the king.
Are you that Daniel who is one of the captives from Judah,
Or it
whom
could
my
be that he was
father
just
the
a
king
kid at
brought
the time.
from
I'm not
Judah?
sure.
I have heard of you, that the Spirit of God is in you, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you. Now, the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me that they should read this writing and make known to me its interpretation, but they could not give the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of you, that you can give interpretations and explain enigmas. Now, if you can read the writing and make known to me its interpretation, you shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom.
Let your gifts be for yourself, and give your rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing to the king and make known to him the interpretation. O king, the most high God gave Nebuchadnezzar, your father, a kingdom and majesty, glory and honor. And because of the majesty that he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whomever he wished, he executed. Whomever he wished, he kept alive. Whomever he wished, he set up. And whomever he wished, he put down. But when his heart was lifted up, and his spirit was hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. Then he was driven from the sons of men. His heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God rules in the kingdom of men, and appoints over it whomever he chooses. But you, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, although you knew all this. And you have lifted yourself up against the Lord of heaven. They have brought the vessels of his house before you, and you and your lords, your wives and your concubines, have drunk wine from them. And you have praised the gods of silver and gold, bronze and iron, wood and stone, which do not see, or hear, or know. And the God who holds your breath in his hand and owns all your ways, you
Yeah.
are not glorified.
Yeah, that's
Then
crazy.
the fingers of the hand were sent from him, and this writing was written. And this is the inscription that was written. Mene, Mene, Tekel Upharsin. This is the interpretation of each word. Mene, God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found
Very
wanting.
efficient language.
Perez, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians.
Where's Perez from?
Then Belshazzar gave the command.
Where's Perez? And then what's the Upharsin? Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. And then Upharsin and Perez. What's going on? Let's see what my Bible's got to say. Daniel 5:25. Mene means numbered. The repetition is for emphasis. God had numbered the days of Belshazzar's kingdom. Its time was up. Tekel means weighed. God had weighed Belshazzar, and the king did not measure up to God's standard of righteousness. Upharsin, the plural of Perez. Okay, how does my Bible know that? Is this an actual language? Means divided. That very night, Babylon would meet divided. would be divided and defeated by the Medes and the Persians. I gotta look this up. Is this an actual language? Let's finish this up and I'll look it up.
And they clothed Daniel with purple and put a chain of gold around his neck.
Purple,
and
a
made
royal
a
color.
proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Chaldeans, was slain, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old.
Getting closer and closer to Cyrus. Misspelled everything. Mene mene tekel upharsin. This is the interpretation of each word. It should be observed that each word stands for a short sentence. Mene signifies numeration, tekel, weighing, and peres, division. How do we know this? Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. Was it S? What is the meaning? Come on. The phrase mene mene tekel upharsin appears in Daniel 5 along with its translation. Some translations spell it upharsin or parsin. The phrase appears on the wall in the palace of Belshazzar, the acting king of Babylon. He is referred to as a son of Nebuchadnezzar, although he was not Nebuchadnezzar's immediate successor. Jeremiah 52:31 says, the evil Merodach, king of Babylon, in the year that he became blah, 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 blah. That guy was. The biblical account of the mysterious and frightening appearance of the phrase mene mene tekel upharsin has given rise to the modern expression the handwriting on the wall, meaning a portent or warning of inevitable misfortune. Okay, we get the story. We just read that. The Bible never identifies what language the words are in. Peres is a singular form of upharsin. How do we know that Peres is a singular form of upharsin if we don't know what the language is? Peres, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Are we just assuming that because Peres came out of nowhere and where's upharsin? Mene, is an Aramaic phrase found in chapter 5. Why couldn't anyone read the writing? There are several possible reasons why the writing was such a puzzle and why no one knew what it meant. The hand wrote in Aramaic. While that was the language of the day, Aramaic is not consonantal text. So there probably were not any vowels present. Reading a series of consonants can be difficult and creates room for different interpretations. There may also not have been spaces between all the letters and words. So trying to sort out where the word divisions, how do we know it's written in Aramaic? How do we know this? In my opinion, the actual words written by the supernatural man's hand on the wall in Daniel 5 were not in any intelligible earthly language. However, Daniel was given the ability by God to translate the writing into terms in Aramean language, mene, mene, tekel, upharsin, as noted in the Bible. Okay, so this is some Aramaic type language. As I understand it, these words, aside from having the symbolic meaning assigned to them by Daniel, numbered, weighed, divided, also denoted monetary units or units of weight. The mena, which comes from the root meaning to count or number, equaled as a monetary unit, 50 shekels, tekel, which was the base unit by which larger units were weighed or valued. And the upharsin equaled 25 shekels, thus representing the division of the mena into two halves. One of my 3 study Bibles said the words were Aramaic, a language well known in the Gentile world. While Belshazzar's wise men could not read them, is puzzling to Daniel's explanation. Is puzzling, so Daniel's explanation was sorely and surely needed. Interesting. So, mene mene tekel upharsin is actually Aramaic words. But maybe what Daniel actually saw was not in Aramaic, some celestial heavenly language, and he wrote it as mene mene tekel upharsin. Or maybe he literally saw mene mene tekel upharsin on the wall, and the people there didn't know what it said. That is interesting. But I feel like I remember reading yesterday that that Aramaic was getting popular. And it was replacing the cuneiform. Something like that. I don't know where that was. I'm not sure where that was. But interesting nonetheless. So what do you guys think? I mean, let's look it up. Let's see. Aramaic upharsin. In other words, we don't have to go in, what? If this was truly written in Aramaic, then the message probably caused Belshazzar more fear than the phantom hand. Aramaic was the common language, but it is unlikely Belshazzar or those of his royal court really took time to learn and read it. They had scribes and magicians to do that. But he did probably recognize the letters and knew it meant something. All the wise men were called, but they could not read it or interpret it. This is a little odd, for if it was really Aramaic, the wise could read it. Exactly. This is a little odd, for if it was... I just read that. Perhaps they just did not want to admit it, because if they did, they might have gotten their heads lopped off. Well, even if they did understand it, with just number, divide, whatever it was, numbered, weighed, divided, or broken. Like what is the meaning behind that? You still need to interpret the meaning, even if you understood what it said literally. Perhaps they just, okay, got that. You see, as an Aramaic word, the mem in front of mene would be a preposition, and the nun, aleph, that follows would mean now. So in Aramaic, the phrase starts off as from now. We would say right now at this moment, tekel in the Aramaic would mean to weigh. But this weighing is the weighing that is used in the marketplace when a merchant divides a piece of meat and weighs it to distribute in its portions. This is not the weighing just to find out how much something weighs. The U in the last word is a conjunction of the word farsin in Aramaic. This is the word for Persian, which is very similar. Perez sounds similar to Persian, right? In Aramaic, the literal interpretation of the 4 words would be, at this moment, the Persians are dividing you up. Boom! Or as we should say, the party's over. That's cool. This is the interpretation of each word. Mene, God has numbered your kingdom. Finished it. So that part is different than the Aramaic interpretation. But you're getting the overall message still. You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Perez, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar, it's just this first line. God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. From now, right now in this moment. I mean, maybe you could sort of draw that right now in this moment. Now it is over. Now at this point in time, God has numbered your kingdom. So there's a finality to it. Numbered now, and finished it. That's interesting. Do you think that it was written in Aramaic, or was it written in a heavenly language and Daniel wrote it down in Aramaic? What do you guys think? What's your take on it? This is interesting. I like this. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today. Tomorrow, Monday, we'll jump into chapter 6. Let's get a tiny little sneak peek. The plot against Daniel, and Daniel in the lion's den, a classic story. Well, all these right now we've been reading are classic stories. Everybody knows these stories of Daniel. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. Tomorrow we'll jump into the lion's den along with Daniel. I hope you guys enjoyed today's reading. I really did. This looking up the meanings of these words was really interesting to me. So everything will be in the description for you guys to check out as usual. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you on Monday. All right? Take care. Bye-bye.